broke ground on the Empire State Building in January 1930. Amazingly, it was completed just 410 days later. The steel granite building had 103 floors and stood over 1,400 feet tall. More than 3,000 workers contributed skills and labor to finish the building. The completed building had 64 working elevators that took less than 1 minute to get to the 18th floor. 80th floor. An outside observation deck on the 86th floor was an inside deck on the 102nd floor provided panoramic views of the city. The Empire State Building symbolized New York City. It was named one of the 7 wonders of the modern world and was featured in many books and movies. It wore the crown of the world's tallest building for nearly 40 years until the deposed by twin giants rise in the lower part of Manhattan. Twin giants rise, then fall. After the Empire State Building was completed, skyscraper construction was slowed down. Method structures were costly to build. The American economy was struggling. It was not until 1970 that the city's skyline would grow even higher. In the 1960s, city officials considered building a World Trade Center, the hub of the international commerce. In Lower Manhattan, the Port Authority of New York and New Jersey was in charge of the project. Architect Minoru Yamasaki designed the buildings. He promised twin towers as part of the multi-building complex of offices and storefronts. The 110-story towers would include some structural innovations. One innovation was the use of the two-frame construction. Instead of the steel frame construction, each tower was similar to the hollow square pipe. The outside perimeter of the building had columns that were spaced close together, surrounding the edge of the building, with the main support column created more usable floor space. Inside, another innovation was the use of sky lobbies. The taller the building is, the more elevator it needs. Yamasaki proposed an elevator system modeled after the city's subway system. The tower had most express and local elevators. People could take an express elevator to the sky lobby on the 44th floor and would be past the first 43 floors. Then they would transfer to a local elevator, which would stop at any floor. To get out their office on the 48th floor, the system was a new, efficient way to transport people vertically, and it reduced the number of the elevator shafts needed. Construction of the towers began in 1966. The North Tower was completed on December 1970, topping out at 1,727 feet. At the top of its spire, a restaurant called Windows on the World offered diners a breathtaking view from the top of the North Tower. The South Tower, reaching 1,362 feet in height, was finished 7 months later. Beneath both buildings was a parking garage that would accommodate up to 2,000 vehicles. Railroad and subway stations were situated underneath the parking garage. The Twin Towers were a striking addition to the city's skyline. Because they were built away from the city's other tall skyscrapers, they dwarfed the surrounding buildings and were the most permitted structures on Manhattan Island. For 30 years, the World Trade Center towers were the tallest buildings in New York. Then, disaster struck. On the morning of September 11, 2001, hijackers flew 2 passenger jets into the tower. Within an hour after the attack, South Tower began to fall on itself and crumble to the ground. The North Tower followed 30 minutes later. New Yorkers watched the stunned belief as these enormous structures were reduced to heaps of burning rubble. Nearly 3,000 people died as a result of the attack. A new tower rises from the ashes. World Trade Center tragedy devastated New York and the rest of the city. Then Yorkers mourned the loss of their neighbors and their landmark. At the same time, they vowed to rebuild the World Trade Center site. Excavating the ruins of the lower towers took time. Planning for the site took years to develop. There were many opinions on what should be done, and many designs were submitted with considerable controversy. Finally, poor authority unveiled the design of the new World Trade Center complex. One area was set aside as a memorial of the park for those who lost their lives that day. The site was an original building. The sites where the original building stood are now reflecting pools and cascading waterfalls. A memorial museum contains items for the old towers. Nearby, a new 104-story tower had been constructed, nicknamed the Freedom Tower. The structure rises astonishingly 1,776 feet. The building's height symbolizes the year of the United States independence. The glass-paneled tower has a twisted octagon shape, and its huge reflection surface mirrors on the changing of the lights all around it. At the top of its spiral, equipped with a light beam that is visible for miles. Several other high-rises are being constructed at that site as well. By the year 2020, the new World Trade Center complex should be completed. New York's ever-changing skyline will reflect the spirit of the city that continues to adapt and grow.